Guys, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to just make a video about 5 points of things you experience when you lose a parent and when you are grieving a parent. They're 5 little weird things. I recently read an incredible book, Dancing at the Pity Party by Tyler Feeder. I'm not sure how to say her last name. So this is a graphic novel designed for those of us who have lost a parent, need someone who just gets it. I mean, look at how many things I tabbed in here. Like this book had me crying, laughing, feeling more understood than I have in months. My loss is a little bit different than Tyler's here because I lost my dad to suicide, whereas Tyler lost her mom to cancer. But I saw that many points of the grieving process were very, very similar, even though the deaths themselves were quite different. She also makes this into a really comical and almost lighthearted read amongst all the darkness. It's very entertaining. So it makes you feel like you've just found a friend, like a close friend who just understands while the rest of the world seems to not be able to understand. So I want to get into 5 small, little things that you might not think are even part of the grieving process, but still relevant things that happened when you've just recently lost a parent, or even not so recently lost a parent. These little things are almost awkward little points that make my life awkward as I navigate my grief, but I want to see if those of you who are watching who have lost a parent or another family member can relate, because I found that Tyler related to a lot of the things that I'm talking about here, and we'll tie them in together. So the first point I want to talk about is the guilt. You feel guilty. You feel guilty for doing everything while they're not there. You feel guilty about having fun. You feel guilty about feeling guilty. You feel guilty about family sleepovers and family gatherings. You feel guilty about holidays. You feel guilty about generally moving forward in your life. Guilty about having a good meal, specifically the good meal part for me. There's this comical but also macabre thought that enters my head a lot of the time if I'm out for dinner somewhere having my favorite meal and I'm like, I'm really enjoying this meal, but dad is dead and he can't enjoy this meal right now. He can't enjoy meals, and it just makes me feel cold. I just feel guilty for enjoying something so delicious when he's not alive to enjoy delicious food anymore. It's so weird. So I have a perfect page for this point here. So you can see I've tabbed it here. So she says, even more insidious than the thought of worms crawling through my mom's eye sockets is the guilt. There's so much of it in so many forms. After 10 years, she still wants her mommy. On the happiest days, there's always that tinge of guilt that you're leaving them behind, just as I described. Point number 2 is feeling annoying or guilty or repetitive if you talk about it too much. So everyone else seems to move on super fast. They're there the first few weeks, the first month, and then after that time is over, they're kind of gone. They've moved on with their own lives, even though you really feel like you haven't. You feel so weird and almost alone and partially insignificant, and you can see the relief in their eyes that you're not bringing it up anymore when you pretend that things are all good. You talk about normal things. It's just you feel like you're just dragging it out, you're just looking for attention if you bring it up more. Now that the funeral kind of area of life has passed, there's also the weird part, because this is kind of tied into this point, but I'm going to say it anyways, where people burst into tears when they're talking to you and you kind of have to comfort them for your loss and your situation and your dad's death or your mom's death or whoever's death. They'll just ask you how you're doing or just initiate conversation with you, and then they just burst into tears and you're patting them it's okay. And it actually happens so often. More than one person has done this to me, and I don't know why I thought I was the only one that had this, but it's in this book and she describes it exactly. So you can see right here, someone's asked her how she's doing, they've burst into tears, and they've got a Kleenex there, and she's patting them saying, it's okay. So the next point, I'm just going to show you page 136. You can see Tyler riding this elephant that just says dead mom, and she's like, hi guys, and it's everyone's talking normally, but she's riding this huge elephant that is her dead mom. And this goes into my next point, feeling everything you do is wrong. There's always this elephant in the room when you're at the workplace or you're out with friends or you're out with family, and that elephant is very obvious of what it is, but it feels like everything you're doing is wrong. You're trying to be normal and it's wrong because you're grieving, and so you should be feeling like you should be obviously grieving, and posting a lot about it even feels wrong. Sharing memes and posting memes feels wrong. Laughing feels wrong. Crying in front of people feels really wrong. wrong. Talking about it can feel wrong. Not talking about it feels wrong because you can just feel the big elephant, like I said. It feels like everything I do puts me in danger of dishonoring my dad, which I guess is like a thing other people experience too. Like, it feels like I'm always grieving wrong, and I made an Instagram post about that says, grieving is so messy. I always feel like I'm doing it wrong. And I know people do it differently, like there's no wrong way to do it, but it still feels that way. And I'm always like, well, do other people who are grieving think I'm grieving wrong because I'm doing it differently than they did? How do I even do this? Number 4 is a huge one for me, and it's feeling left behind. I can't speak for other types of deaths, although I'm sure it's there for other people too, but because my dad's death was by suicide, I have so many thoughts of like feeling left behind. Like, why couldn't you just stay? Why weren't we enough for you to stay? Why wasn't I enough for you to stay? I feel like he decided to move forward, like move on, and left us here type of a thing, I guess. And I know that's wrong and not true at all. It's just not, but it's these thoughts that go in my mind nonetheless, and so I just kind of have to work past those. Number 5 is the last one, and it's feeling almost envious. People getting married, people getting promoted, people having babies, people hugging their dad, people thriving as a family or personally, and you're watching them experience this, and it seems like everybody's experiencing this. Well, you're literally feeling like you're being dragged headfirst through the mud. It's like, why was I handed this when they were handed that? You know what I mean? The thing that gets me through this though, when these thoughts come up, is the verse from Jeremiah. I think it's Jeremiah 29:11. Is, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to give you a future and a hope and not disaster." It just reminds me that only we can do what we are set to do. Like, we can only experience what we have to experience. We have to go through what we must go through. And only we can do that. And it will shape us the way we need to be shaped. But it's still, there's still moments when it's difficult watching like so much good happening for someone. And you're like, things are going great for them. They're a good person. They have these good things. I think I'm an okay person. Why do I have these bad things? And it's like, feels so unfair, but at the same time, you don't always know. Like, I don't always know what these people are actually experiencing, even though it looks like things are great. But I know I can do this. I can get through what I have to get through because God's got this. I am loved and valued too. Even though I've been handed this, I am still valid and loved. Doesn't make me any less, I guess. Even if my situation looks so much worse than other people's lives, I'm still gonna get through it. And I guess essentially things are just weird. Everything just feels so stupid right now. Every moment of like, not every moment, but most moments when you're laughing with friends or sharing a meme or you're tweeting nonsense, it feels almost wrong and false. And it can be exhausting because a lot of days I'm still falling apart even though I've tweeted something dumb about like my mashed potatoes. And it makes me think of this page in here. It's page 88. It's the types of sadness. So I'm going to show you guys here. So there's empty sadness, frustrated sadness. I really relate to that one. I can't believe she has to miss this. Angry sadness. So relatable. So many awful people still have their moms. Defeated sadness. So I especially love this page because I love the way she aims to normalize talking about death. Like, our society is so weird and misguided about death. Because guess what? We all die. All of us die. Most of us have to deal with death at some point. So why can't we talk about it? It was so refreshing to hear somebody else describe death in a fun, not fun, but it was just refreshing to hear it in a funny way how poorly our society handles death. I'm always drawn to people who've experienced loss before because I know that they will have an understanding and they won't be afraid to talk about the reality of death with me. So Tyler in this book kind of talks about how pieces of her died with her mom, and one of the things that died was feeling normal, and I really found that relatable. A piece of you dies with your parent and you never feel normal again. Like, you know, with COVID, when people are like, when we go back to normal, we'll do this. When your parent dies, there is no like going back. Like, you're not going back to who you were before. You're not going back to normal. You're a different person after it happens, and like parts of you are just gone because they're gone. There is no sense of normal or regular life literally ever again. You do heal, I'm sure, and you just find a way to move on with that healing, but it's still a part of you. Like, there's never gonna be that part of you that had all of your family with you. It's gone. I'm gonna show you guys in a minute here, but there's this part where she just, like, everything she's doing, she's saying, my mom has cancer, my mom has cancer, my mom has cancer, like brushing her teeth, my mom has cancer, riding her bike, my mom has cancer, and it's because she didn't want to forget and have to remember it. And I so relate to that. I'll be checking out books at work and be like, my dad died. I'll be like going for a walk. My dad died from suicide. It's like something that you just is like there every time you're doing something, as if you are scared to forget it. So it's just so valuable to me that artists and writers have the courage to talk about their worst experiences, to help other people who are going through the same thing to feel like they're not so alone, or like feel like there's nothing wrong with them, I guess. This must have been so hard. She wrote this 10 years after her mom had passed, but she shares all of her like horrible experiences through this and all of her vulnerabilities. And it's so refreshing. It's so valuable to me. I borrowed this from the library, but I will for sure be buying this for my collection. Like, it's just beyond amazing. The way she put herself out there and described and relived all of this so that those of us who have lost have someone to just get it. And I'm sure in a way it was healing for her to write it all out too. But so I'm gonna go over a few do's and don'ts as she outlines on page 209 when you are helping someone along their grieving process. I did make a whole video about 5 things not to say, where that's literally all I talked about. But I'm just gonna go over it really quickly and say what she said because I thought she described it in a really great way. I'm sorry, it's not page 209, but nonetheless, do's and don'ts for dealing with a grieving person is what it says. Do ask them questions about their loved ones. Do laugh and smile if they are. Do tell them stories about their loved ones if you have some. Do reach out a few months later after all the fuss dies down. That's really important and something I've been missing in my life a lot. After it's been about 3 months since my dad passed. Do make note of important birthdays and death anniversaries so you can reach out to them. And just do acknowledge how crappy the situation is. Saying, I can't imagine how hard that is. Do bring cookies. Very important. Another thing that I've discovered along the way, ask them how you can serve them. Just say, hey, how can I serve you? Maybe they'll say, you can take my kids for an hour to the park. You can maybe help me mop my floor. You can help me vacuum out my car. You can sit with me. You can, like, that's always such a helpful question to ask. Things not to do. Don't presume you know how they feel. Don't one-up them with your own story. Don't try to comfort them with religious thoughts that they might not share. Don't compare their loss to yours unless the situation is extremely similar. And then there's the rest down there I don't need to go through, but I want to point out for sure, don't stop reaching out after a week. So if you've lost a parent or lost someone close in your family, please read this book. Or if you've got like a best friend or a girlfriend, boyfriend who has lost someone in their family, it will really give you some great insight into what they're experiencing. This will make you laugh, it'll make you sob. I cried so hard at so many parts of this book. It's like got all the little weird, awkward things about grieving that you didn't know that other people were experiencing. So many times I shouted like, yes, this happened to me. And I would text my boyfriend and be like, guess what? Somebody else has this thought or has had someone say this to them, because I just had no idea that other people experienced those things. One thing I wanted to point out was Tyler remembering her mom's last meal. I don't know what it is with my dad and food that's stuck with me, but she watched her mom pass, essentially, so she remembers all those little things, what her mom was wearing, what her mom last ate, the last thing she said, those types of things. I don't have that from my dad because he left so suddenly. So that really stuck with me, and I just kept thinking, like, what was the last thing dad ate? And I would think about all the food that he liked to eat, and I'd be like, I just will never know what the last thing he ate was. And like, that just sat with me, and it's still sitting with me, and I just think about it, and I'm like, I just wish I could know. I just wish I could know what the last thing he ate was. It's just weird little things that stick with you, like, or that stick out to you, I guess. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, guys. This is for those of you who need to just have a friend who has lost someone close to them. For those of you who just feel like watching it, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this and letting me get vulnerable. It is so helpful for me to just talk about it, and I just loved this book so much. It is quite new, just released in September this year, 2020. So yeah, pick it up if you want some insight into someone's grief, or if you are grieving, or if you want something that just explores the topic of death in a real way. Like, not the stupid ways that society and social media and the media portrays death, like a real portrayal of death, which is a reality. So I mean, like, I feel like it needs to be talked about more, and I never want to be that person who's afraid to talk about it or glosses over it. But it also explores death in a lighthearted way, so you're not going to feel like super depressed after reading it. It's like, it's a really entertaining, lighthearted way to explore death. It's just a really important read. So let me know if I can pray for you for anything. I would love to pray for you, or if you want to talk to me anytime, leave a comment. I'm here for you, of course, and I love you guys. So I'll see you on my next one. Bye.